Get ready, because today we're going to be diving into some seriously deep stuff about, like, love and God. We're talking about Meister Eckhart.
Yeah, Meister Eckhart. This guy, like a 13th century mystic and theologian, was, way ahead of his time. We're going to try to unpack how he takes this simple phrase, just three little words, God is love, and kind of turns it into this, like, crazy, profound exploration of, how we connect to, like, the divine. It gets a little...
He's saying, you think you know love? Okay, well, think again.
Oh.
Which is why we're doing a deep dive into his Sermon 5. It's kind of like a crash course, in medieval thought, but, like, with some seriously relevant stuff for, like, today, even.
Totally. And the really wild thing is that Eckhart, he doesn't just give us like one definition of like what God is love means. He gives us, get this, four.
Oh, man. Okay. 4 definitions. All right. So break them down for us. Give us the Spark Notes version.
Okay, so the first one is God loves what is capable of loving him. Now, on the surface, this might seem, kind of basic, right?
Yeah, it's like God loves us because we can love God back.
Yeah.
Isn't that like Sunday School 101 kind of stuff?
Sure, but think about it in the context of like how people back then saw God. Back then, God was this distant, like, all-powerful being. So Eckhart, he's, shaking things up a bit. He's putting out this idea of, like, reciprocity, that God is, like, drawn to love, even from, us. Like, it's a two-way street.
So it's not like we're over here trying to, earn God's love. It's more like love is just what God does. It's who God is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you. So what about definition number 2?
This is where it gets, even more interesting. Eckhart says that everything capable of love is drawn to God's love, whether they realize it or not.
Whoa, okay. So you're saying even if someone, like, doesn't even believe in God, if they're, capable of love, they're still connected to this, like, this divine force.
Exactly. It's like we're hardwired for it on some level, whether we know it or not. Love is this spiritual GPS, always guiding us home. Okay, ready for number 3.
Lay it on me. What's next?
All right, so this is where things start to get a little mystical. Eckhart, he says that God's love unifies, drawing all things back to oneness.
Hold on, back up a sec. So he's saying that all that separation we see in the world, like all that division and stuff, it's like not even real.
It's like an illusion, yeah. Deep down, we're all like part of this one big giant thing. We're all connected. Okay, definition number 4. Here we go.
All right, bring it home. Hit me with number 4.
Eckhart says that God's love gives life and sustains all beings. Love, you see, isn't just some, like, fleeting feeling to Eckhart. He's saying it's more like it's what gives everything existence.
Wait. I thought we were talking about love. Now we're talking about existence itself. Eckhart was really going there.
He went there. He even says that God needs to love us for his own existence.
Hold up. Now, I got to stop you right there. Did he just say that God needs us? I mean, that's not something you hear every day.
Yeah.
Especially not from, like, a medieval theologian.
It's true. You don't hear it every day. But what he means is love is, like, so baked into who God is that, to not love would be, well, to not be God.
Oh, okay. That's pretty profound when you think about it like that. But how does love, like, actually change us?
Well, Eckhart, he compares divine love to food. But there's, like, a twist. He's saying how physical food, when we eat it, it's transformed into us, right?
Yeah, we eat a burger, it becomes part of us.
Right. But spiritual food, love, transforms us into it. We become the love.
So it's like we literally become what we consume, spiritually speaking. So the more we, like, experience this divine love, the more we become love ourselves.
Bingo. You got it.
Okay, now we're getting into some, like, brain-bending territory here. Because Eckhart, he talks about dwelling in love. It's the same thing as, like, dwelling in God. What does that even, like, mean?
This is where Eckhart gets seriously mystical. Think of it like this, okay? Imagine 2 flames, right? When they come together, they don't just touch. They merge, and they become one bigger, brighter flame.
Okay, so it's not like we're just, like, hanging out near God.
Yeah.
You're saying we can actually exist inside God and God in us at the same time.
You got it. And it gets even wilder. Like, Eckhart, he actually says that, each angel's joy, the whole experience, is fully present in all of us. And, God, too, with all of his being, is fully present in us, even if we're, like, totally clueless about it.
Okay, you officially lost me. My brain just, like, exploded.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But you know what? While we're on the subject of angels, Eckhart said this one thing about angels that was just wild. He said that, like, if he really knew the angels, he would give up, like, everything, the whole world, just to, like, be with them. Why would he say something like that?
He's saying that experiencing divine love, like really knowing those angels and God would be so joyful, so fulfilling that literally nothing else would even matter.
Wow, okay. That's a powerful statement. But this whole oneness thing, it's like the heart of Eckhart's whole sermon, right? Like,
Right.
what does it even mean to become one with God?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. And he
Right.
doesn't shy away from the challenging parts. To become one with God, he says, our sense of self, our ego, it has to, disappear.
Okay, now that's where I get tripped up. How are we supposed to even, like, wrap our heads around that? It's like our individual drop of water has to, like, go back into the ocean of God's being or something?
Exactly. We got to surrender to something, way bigger than us. We got to recognize that, like, our true selves, they're found in that oneness, in that unity.
And this whole oneness idea, it, like, totally changes how Eckhart sees prayer, which I got to say is another uh, fascinating part of this whole sermon. He says that, get this, praying for stuff is actually less powerful than praying for, like, nothing but God. What's that about?
See, Eckhart, he thinks that's like, I don't know, like handing God a shopping list, right?
Yeah.
He says that real prayer isn't about that. It's more about like aligning ourselves with God's will. It's about recognizing that like we already have everything we actually need through our connection with God.
So instead of, like, asking for things, we should focus on surrendering our desires and getting in sync with the divine will.
You got it. It's a whole different way of looking at things. It's not me and what I want, it's God and what is. And understanding that like being one with God is all we really need.
Man, that's a lot to digest. It's challenging, but also, it's kind of freeing in a way.
Hmm.
But how do we actually live this way? It's one thing to talk about it, but to, like, actually do it, that's a whole other story.
You're right. It's definitely not easy. But the amazing thing is that, Eckhart does give us some clues, like practical steps we can actually take to cultivate this sense of oneness, this whole dwelling in God
Oh,
thing.
okay, I'm listening.
Uh,
So what's step one? Give us
Mhm.
the Eckhart starter pack for, like, experiencing divine love.
Well, he talks a lot about detachment. And, not in a cold, unfeeling kind of way. It's more about like detaching from our ego,
Yeah.
like letting go of our need to be in control, our attachment to like material things.
So basically, we have to let go of all the things that keep us, like, separate, the stuff that makes us focus on me instead of we.
That actually kind of sounds a lot like what they teach in mindfulness.
Exactly. And this detachment, it, like, creates space for something, well, deeper. It allows our true nature to emerge, which, is already one with God. It's about
Yeah.
getting out of our own way and just, like, being present with this oneness.
Okay, I like that. That's beautifully said. And this whole like presence thing, being present in the moment, that's a big deal for Eckhart, right?
Huge. He says that we don't find God in some, far off heaven. God is right here, right now.
So no need to go climb a mountain or sit in a cave to connect with, the divine. We can experience it while we're like doing the dishes, walking the dog, even right now, just having this conversation.
Exactly. Eckhart wants us to remember that the path to God, it's not about running away from the world. It's about, like, finding God in the world.
So finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, that makes it seem, I don't know, a little less intimidating, I guess. It's about perspective, really. And speaking of perspective, one of the things Eckhart talks about is how love plays out in like our relationships with other people, which, feels especially relevant today.
Okay. Yeah, because Eckhart's idea of love isn't just about, like, warm, fuzzy feelings, right?
Yeah.
It's about how we treat each other, especially the people who are, different from us.
You're catching on. It's about recognizing that spark of the divine that's in everyone, no matter who they are, even if we disagree with them or whatever.
So it's not just about loving the people who are easy to love, like our family and friends. It's about, like, extending that same love to everyone.
That's the goal. It's definitely a challenge. But if we can do it, if we can tap into that kind of love, that's how we start to, break down those walls that divide us. It's how we start to heal.
It's about taking that whole oneness thing beyond just, like, an idea and making it real in the world.
Exactly. It's about action. Because if we really believe we're all connected, then, well, we got to act like it, right?
We're called to be, like, agents of love out in the world, which, I think the world could really use a little more of that these days.
Couldn't agree more. And that's the beauty of Eckhart's message. Even though it's coming from like way back in the 13th century, it still resonates with us today.
Yeah, it's like he's, like, whispering to us across the centuries or something.
Yeah.
And one of the things he whispers about is this whole idea of setting us over all his goods. What do you think he meant by that?
It's a very evocative phrase, right? And it all comes back to this this oneness. See, Eckhart suggesting that when we connect with God on that deep level, we kind of inherit everything that God is. It's like coming into a massive inheritance, not money or possessions or anything like that, but something way bigger.
So you're saying it's more like we inherit God's love, God's being. It's like we're heirs to this divine inheritance, not because we did anything to earn it, but just because we are.
Exactly. And the truly radical thing is that Eckhart believed this inheritance was available to absolutely everyone. It doesn't matter, what you believe or where you come from. He's saying we're all swimming in this ocean of like, abundance, love, possibility, all that good stuff. All we got to do is like open ourselves up to it.
Okay, that's a beautiful image. But like you said before, opening ourselves up to it, that's often the hardest part.
That's the real challenge, isn't it? We're often the ones, getting in our own way. We're so busy holding on to our limited perspectives or, fears and doubts that we miss the big picture, the truth that's like right there in front of us the whole time.
It's like we're standing under a waterfall with a teaspoon, begging for a few drops when we could just like dive right in and experience the whole thing.
It's about surrender, really, surrendering to that flow, that abundance. It's always there for us.
So it's not about earning it. It's about like aligning with it, right? Getting rid of the stuff that keeps us separate from it, which is a powerful thought for sure. But I got to ask, if love is supposed to be this all-encompassing, like unifying force,
hmm
then why is there so much, separation in the world, so much suffering? If we're all ultimately one, why does it feel so different?
Now that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And Eckhart would probably say it all comes down to perspective. We
Yeah.
see ourselves, as separate from like everything and everyone. It's like we're looking at the world through like one of those tiny peepholes instead of seeing the whole thing.
Okay, but Eckhart's saying we got to take those blinders off,
Yeah.
right? Like shift our perspective from like our little ego view to the bigger picture. We need that like soul view where we're already one with everything.
You got it. He wants us to like really see with that expansive interconnected awareness. And when we do that, that's when we realize that, the separation is an illusion. I mean, it's not that our own experiences aren't real. It's more like they're just, one tiny part of a much bigger reality.
So instead of seeing the world in standard def, we need to upgrade to like ultra high def. I can get behind that. And if we actually start living that way, wouldn't that like change how we act? Wouldn't we naturally be more like loving, more compassionate?
Exactly. When we see ourselves in everyone, we start acting differently. It's like Eckhart's message, even though it's like from way back when, it's still so relevant to, what we're going through today. All this division, all this disconnection. Eckhart's reminding us that the thing that connects us all, that binds us together, it's love.
Not just like romantic love or like the love between friends and family, but love as like the very fabric of existence itself.
Okay.
Okay, that actually makes me think about another one of Eckhart's ideas that we touched on earlier. This whole concept of setting us over all his goods. Can we like dive into that one a little deeper? What do you make of that phrase?
It's powerful, isn't it? It's like this really vivid image. And it all comes back to this whole idea of oneness that we've been, talking about. Eckhart suggesting that when we experience that deep connection with God, we also, in a way, inherit everything that God is.
So we inherit like God's love, God's very essence. Like we automatically become heirs to like this divine inheritance just by, existing.
Exactly. And the really wild thing is that Eckhart believed this divine inheritance was like available to absolutely everyone, regardless of, their background or their beliefs. He's saying that we're already like swimming in an ocean of abundance, love, and, infinite possibilities. All we have to do is open ourselves to it.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. But like you said before, sometimes opening ourselves up to that kind of abundance is the hardest part.
It's true. Sometimes we're our own worst enemies. We get so stuck in our own heads, clinging to our limited perspectives and like all our fears and doubts, that we completely miss the big picture, the truth that's right here, right now, waiting for us to, finally see it.
It's like we're standing under Niagara Falls with a thimble asking for like a few drops of water when we could just, dive right in and experience the full force.
It's about surrender, letting go of control and just surrendering to that flow, to that abundance. It's always there.
Okay, so it's not about earning it. It's about aligning with it, right? About removing those obstacles we put in our own way. It's a powerful image for sure. But how do we go from the thimble to the full-on plunge? Like, what are some practical things you can do to integrate these, like, big ideas into our everyday lives?
Well, Eckhart talks a lot about the importance of detachment, but not in like a cold or unfeeling way. It's more about like detaching from our ego's need to control everything, letting go of our attachment to, material things and outcomes.
So surrendering to something larger than ourselves, that actually kind of sounds similar to like modern mindfulness practices.
Exactly. It's about letting go of the things that like keep us separate, that keep us focused on me instead of we. And when we do that, we create space for, something much deeper to emerge. It allows our true nature, which is already one with the divine, to like shine through.
So detachment is like step one.
Yeah.
What about like step two? What else did Eckhart emphasize?
Presence. Eckhart's big on presence. He believed that we find God not in some, far off heaven, but right here, right now, in the present moment.
We don't have to like go on some crazy retreat to find God.
Nope, God's already here. God's in the everyday, the mundane. Eckhart's reminding us that, the path to God isn't about escaping from the world. It's about finding God in the world, in the messiness of life, in the beauty, in the chaos. It's all there.
So instead of trying to like transcend our lives,
Yeah.
we need to embrace them, even the parts that, we'd rather avoid.
Exactly. And when we do that, we start to see that even the most ordinary moments can be filled with, like, a sense of the divine.
That's kind of beautiful when you think about it like that. It's about finding the extraordinary in the ordinary. But Eckhart doesn't just talk about cultivating this awareness on our own. He also talks about how it plays out in our relationships with, like, other people.
He does. And this is where things get really, interesting. Because Eckhart doesn't see love as, some fleeting emotion. It's this powerful force that challenges us to look beyond our differences and recognize that spark of the divine that's present in every single being. No exceptions.
It's not enough to just, like, love the people who are easy to love. We're being challenged to extend that same love, that same compassion to everyone, even the people who, are difficult to love.
That's the goal, right? And it's not easy, that's for sure. But that's the transformative power of love. It can break down walls, heal divisions, and create a more, compassionate and just world.
It's about putting that whole oneness thing into action, not just, like, thinking about it. It's about living it.
Exactly. Eckhart believed that if we truly believe in this interconnectedness, then we're called to, act accordingly.
We're called to be agents of love out in the world, which, let's be honest, the world could definitely use a little more love these days.
Couldn't agree more. And that's what makes Eckhart's message so powerful. It's timeless. Even though he was writing like centuries ago, his words still resonate deeply with us today.
Yeah. It's like he's, I don't know, speaking directly to us across time or something. And speaking of speaking directly to us, Eckhart had some pretty revolutionary things to say about prayer, right? Like, he basically turned traditional ideas about prayer upside down. I'd love to unpack that a little more with you.
Absolutely. Eckhart wasn't a fan of, the whole asking for stuff kind of prayer, like presenting God with a wish list and hoping for the best. He believed that true prayer was about something much deeper, something more about like aligning ourselves with God's will.
Okay, so instead of rattling off a bunch of requests, it's more about surrendering our desires and, like, getting in sync with the divine plan.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we already have everything we truly need within that connection with God.
That's a really different way of thinking about prayer, for sure. And it sounds like it would require a lot of, like, trust. Trust in, the universe, trust in the unfolding of life.
Trust is a big part of it, for sure. It's about letting go of the need to control everything and, embracing the mystery of it all.
So instead of making demands, we're learning to surrender. Instead of trying to, like, bend the universe to our will, we're aligning ourselves with something much greater.
And in that surrender, there's a profound sense of, freedom. It's not about giving up on our own desires, but rather about aligning them with like a higher purpose, a deeper wisdom.
Yeah.
It's about trusting that we already have everything we need in our connection with, the divine.
That makes me think about another one of Eckhart's challenging ideas, this whole concept of dissolving the ego. Like, in order to truly experience union with God, our sense of self, our ego has to, completely disappear. That's an intense thought, and to be honest, a little scary.
It's definitely one of the most challenging aspects of like Eckhart's teachings, but it's also incredibly liberating when we, start to really unpack what he means.
So he's not saying that we need to, like, completely erase ourselves.
No, not at all. It's more about letting go of our attachment to, a limited and illusory sense of self. Our ego wants us to believe that we're separate, that we're alone. But Eckhart's saying that's just not true. Our true identity is found in our connection to something much greater than ourselves.
So it's not about erasing who we are. It's about transcending the limitations that we place on ourselves. Like, we're shedding a skin that no longer serves us, allowing our true selves to, like, finally emerge.
Beautifully said. It's about recognizing that our true identity isn't bound by our, thoughts or our emotions or even our experiences. It resides in that boundless space of oneness with, the
And
divine.
we're merging with the ocean, becoming one with something vast and infinite.
Exactly. We don't cease to exist. We
Yeah.
just expand. We surrender to a larger reality.
We become part of something much bigger than ourselves. I like that. But it makes me think about, the suffering that we see in the world. If we're all ultimately one, why is there so much pain? Why is there so much, suffering? It feels like a contradiction.
It's a question that humans have been grappling with, well, probably since the dawn of time. And Eckhart, he offers a really unique perspective on this. He suggests that suffering often comes from, our attachment to that separate sense of self, to our ego's desires and fears.
So the more we cling to our individual egos, the more we suffer.
It's like we're creating our own suffering. When we identify solely with our ego, with all its desires and fears and insecurities, we create this sense of separation from like the wholeness of existence.
Mhm.
We start to experience life as a series of, threats and challenges to our well-being rather than as a unified tapestry in which we are all like interconnected threads.
It's like we're building these walls around ourselves. Yeah. With our thoughts and beliefs, and then we wonder why we feel so, like, trapped.
It's a vicious cycle, right? We create the very conditions for our own suffering. But Eckhart, he wouldn't say that we should like ignore suffering or pretend it's not there. He'd probably say that the key is to, meet it with an open heart, with that same expansive awareness of our, true nature that we were talking about earlier.
So even when things are tough, even when we're hurting, there's still that deeper reality, that sense of oneness that's always there.
It's always there. And that's where, Eckhart's teachings on love, they come full circle. Because true love, it's not about, feeling good or avoiding pain. It's about recognizing that divine spark in absolutely everyone and everything, even in the midst of, suffering,
Yeah.
even in the people who are like really hard to love.
It's about remembering that we're all connected, even when it doesn't feel like it.
Mhm.
We're all part of this, like, big cosmic dance.
Exactly. And when we can really truly embody that kind of love, that's when we start to experience real freedom. Freedom from our fears, freedom from our limitations, even freedom from, suffering itself.
So love is the key to, like, unlocking our full potential.
You could say that. It's about recognizing that we are not separate, we are not alone. We are part of something so much bigger than ourselves. And when we tap into that, when we align ourselves with that truth, everything changes.
That's a powerful message.
It is. And it's a message that the world needs now more than ever.
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Meister Eckhart's Sermon 5, I'm feeling, I don't know, a little bit speechless, honestly. This, like, medieval mystic. He's challenged us to rethink everything we thought we knew about love, about God, about, like, what it means to be
He was
human.
a radical thinker, that's for sure.
He was. But I think the biggest takeaway here, the thing I really want our listeners to sit with, is this. Love isn't just a feeling. It's the very essence of who we are. It's the force that connects us all. And it has the power to, heal the world if we let
I
it.
said it better myself.
And on that note, that's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those big questions, and most importantly, keep loving.